Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum Nazreen and welcome to our show Chit Chat with Azmat Mujeeb. Today my guest is a long time politician. He is in politics for so many years. Right from the graduation, he stepped into politics. He started his politics from the city and then stepped into federal politics. Born and raised in Pickering, great leader, excellent human being, fantastic personality and a good friend. So I would like to invite Honourable, my guest of honor, Member of Parliament, Mark Holland from Ajax-Pickering. Thank you, Mark.
Hi, Azmat. How are you doing? Thank you so much for having me. It's great to see you.
Great to see you, Mark, as well. So I'm just going to tell you that today we're not going to talk about the politics and we're not going to talk about your policies. This is a great chance for me, an opportunity to show viewers the other side of Mark. So as I said in my introduction, you're long-term politicians. I just want to ask you and start from here that right from the graduation, you step into the politics. So you wanted to be a politician since from the beginning. What is the story behind that?
Well, I think it goes back probably to my grandfather in some ways. He was very interested in politics on my mom's side. He very interested in policy. Actually, my grandfather on my dad's side was very involved, and I was blown away by the idea you could kind of change the world around you through politics, and that anybody could do it. It is actually a really remarkable thing, and I was really blown away by it. I started volunteering actually when I was 12 years old. My mom would drop me off with a packed lunch, and I would go into a campaign office, and there's a wonderful person named Nora Stoner who I would work with, and I would see, that she was trying to make a difference and that she really cared about her community, and I got to tap into that and help try to support her. And so it was a really special feeling as a kid. I think a lot of times as a kid, you don't feel particularly powerful or like you can change the world around you. And with politics, I felt like I could make a difference, and that made me feel special.
Right. So was your father was also a politician?
No, my dad was a lawyer. My mom was a teacher. They're both retired now. They voted, but they weren't overly political, I wouldn't say. We would talk politics around the table.
Right.
My dad thought I was crazy to go into politics. He didn't really get it. I think he gets it now. But it was at first he knew what kind of a rough and tumble world he was, and I think you kind of worry about your son in that kind of environment. Right. But no, they were not super political in terms of being involved. They voted. They cared about issues. They weren't particularly partisan, but they did have a tremendous amount of civic pride and feeling that you need to give back to your community and volunteer and get involved. And so for me, it was a different expression of that value.
So basically, they were the community activists, and they were trying to give back to the community, and you're inspired by them. And the same thing, always when I see politicians and when I talk with the politicians, I always say, politics. It's when you want to step your foot into the politics. It's a great effort, and it's a great courage, because politicians feel pain for the community. That's why they want to do something for the community, and that's why they put their head. So yeah, great. So you were inspired by your parents. You were born and raised in Pickering, and tell me about some education and some childhood.
Sure. So I started out in Pickering. I was born on Rougemount Drive. I went to Rosebank Road Public School, and then we actually moved to Ajax. So we were in Ajax for a long time. I went to Westney Heights Public School, which is when it first opened. It used to make me sound young, Azmat, but these days it makes me sound old. 1985 was the first year that I went to school there in grade 5, right. And it was a brand new school. So it was we actually started at Bolton C. Falby until it moved in, and then I went to Pickering High School. And, it's interesting to me because a lot of the things that we're dealing with now, with Black Lives Matter and some of the really important questions that are being asked about racism, Pickering High School at that time was in the midst of deep racial tensions, very, very very disturbing things that were happening in the school, and you were seeing it, things that that were really upsetting. And so we made a lot of progress since then, but it's disappointing to see that we still do have issues.
Right. When you started your political career, and when you were coming into your professional life, I would say, because as a politician you choose profession as a, yeah, as your profession. So what were the hardships you faced? What, tell us something, like what were the difficulties you faced?
Well, this was my dream. I wanted to do it, but everybody tells you this is not a career. Everybody will say to you, you can't do this as a career. You need to do this as a part-time hobby, and you're just going to get disappointed and you're going to lose and nothing's going to work out.
Right.
So I had a lot of anxiousness, to be honest. I chose a career and a passion that isn't particularly stable. And, you go through a lot of elections. Fortunately, I won most of them, but I lost two. I lost my very first out, and I lost in 2011. And so you carry a lot of anxiety with that. And unfortunately, a lot of times your family does too, because you want to make a difference, but your career is highly unstable. The other side of it is that unfortunately, it can sometimes be quite a nasty business. People to build themselves up, tear other people down, and so that can be hard on family. But the hardest part, I think, is being away. This is a job that requires you to be gone a lot, and so that requires a lot of sacrifice by your family, and that's a lot to ask of people you love, even when it is for your passion. And so I'm very lucky. I love what I do, but it's like anything, Azmat. It doesn't matter how much you love what you do. There's always another side to that coin.
Right, right. Yeah, exactly. It's not easy, to step anything and you get the achievement. You have to go through the hard part, and it's gonna be like a roller coaster. Some days good, some days bad, and you have to do a lot of effort on it. Any person you want to acknowledge during your difficult time, who inspired you, who changed your life, who helped you out?
Well, the number one mentor and hero in my life is my mom. And I know we all love our mom. So it's
Happy
maybe
Mother's Day.
what's that?
I said Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you. Yeah, she is somebody who is just always optimistic, always positive. She walks into a room and she lights it up. It doesn't matter what people are going through. She's always going to be there for them. She's always going to see the positive. And she, when I had, dark days and tough moments, she was the light, and she would lift me up. And, she was the one that believed in me from the beginning and knock on doors every day, month in, month out, every election I've ever been in. She's 76 now,
Wow.
and she's still my hardest canvasser. She'll go out and out knock anybody. And I've never asked her to do any of that. She's just such a giving, caring person, and such an optimistic, grateful, and appreciative person. So she's my mentor. She's the person that I try to emulate. She's the person that I look up to.
Right, right. Well, we salute your mom, and thanks to her to give us such a great leader.
Thanks.
Yeah. One question. It's a political question. Why choose Liberal Party when you step into the politics? Why not other party?
It's a great question. So for me, I got involved because it really felt like the party that most closely resembled what I was hoping for the country. Compassionate, multicultural, pluralistic, defending individual rights, but balancing those against the collective. I just thought it had the balance right, and so for me, I first got involved when I was grade 5. And it's funny because I talk about my mom. I told her when I was 17, I really want to get involved in politics. I want to really go at this. And at the time, Kim Campbell was the leader, and she was really pressuring me. She liked Kim Campbell.
Right.
But I really also connected with Jean Chrétien. I really connected with Pierre Elliott Trudeau. They really inspired me, and so that's where I decided to get involved. And I started volunteering in federal politics. Then I was about 17,
Right.
and the charter and who Trudeau was and who Chrétien was, it just resonated with me. It felt like a home for my values and my ideas. It doesn't mean you always agree with a party, but it seemed like the place that was most close to my values and who I was.
Right, right. Mark, life is really, really busy, and being a politician, back and forth, you have to go to Ottawa and, doing long speeches, but you have to relax. So what do you do in your spare time? How do you relax?
Well, there's a couple of things. Running is really important to me. I try to run every day. It's keeps me centered, and it's almost meditative for me.
Right.
I'm a very social person, so I'm in the right business. But being able to be social with people that I really love is everything to me. So, being able to take time with my kids, or with Stephanie, or with broader family or friends, in whatever form. But I used to love improv. I don't get to do that anymore. That's something that I miss. I think making time to be silly and kind of do things that aren't important at all. I think it's important to not take yourself too seriously. We all do important things. Every one of us makes important contributions, but you got to find time to be completely silly and let it all go sometimes too.
I heard you're a fan of watching movies, right?
Yeah,
And I heard you watch Bollywood movies as well. Is that true?
I do. Yeah, yeah. I get I try to get some good recommendations, and I the first one that I saw that I really fell in love with was Three Idiots,
Oh yeah.
which I thought was such a beautiful movie. And so yeah, I'm kind of eclectic on movies. I do tend to like a movie that makes you feel good at the end. If you're going to do escapism, I want escapism where
Yeah.
at the end of it you feel good. So movies like that, I have Three Idiots. I loved it for that reason. But there's
So, do
yeah.
you understand Hindi or Urdu when you watch?
No, I can say a couple of things. I can say
What can you say? Just tell us something.
बहुत event acha hai, or
Yeah.
I could say Azmat mera acha dost hai.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. Well, shukriya.
Yeah.
What other languages you speak? I heard like you speak English, Urdu, Hindi, or Punjabi as well.
French. I mean, again, I know a little bit of Punjabi. There was a point in time where I went in and I took Punjabi lessons, so I learned gaga, nana, sasa, learned the whole alphabet, and it was a lot of fun because it was so encouraging. People were. I think one of the challenges with French, as an example, is people either expect you know it or you don't, and
Right.
when you speak any Punjabi or any Urdu or Hindi, people
Right.
are blown away. So it's super encouraging to try to learn
Yeah.
the language. You know what I mean? Which is so I like that aspect of it. I went to a gurdwara. There's a wonderful fellow who still lives in the riding named Gurmeet, who was my teacher, and he was very, very patient.
Right. Okay.
But it was nice because the language is phonetic. At one time, you could actually I had no idea what I was saying, but you could read the letters and actually be able to have it be understood.
Yeah, there are apps available. You can type in and you can either understand or the app can speak on your behalf in any language. Eh? So let's talk about Punjabi. What can you say in Punjabi?
कोई गल नहीं. बहुत स्वाद है, or you could say,
Yeah, honestly,
a
let us
lot of things related to food. I say fer malange, sasri akal, just little things. I think, part of it is when I visited India or when I travel, I always try to learn a little bit of the language. You're not going to become perfectly fluent, but I think it's a way of respecting where you are and respecting the people that you're communicating with. And so, even if I can say a little bit, it shows that I have a tremendous respect for their language and their culture, and that I have a curiosity about it. And I think, as human beings, as we appreciate one another, it's a really good way of being able to show your genuine interest in somebody and somebody's culture.
Yes, exactly. It shows the genuine connection and respect and acknowledgement. If you acknowledge, people feel close to you. So really, it's a language that speaks very, very well and very, very much. I want to talk about something that people of your writing knows, but I don't know. So many people doesn't know that viewers mark. Whenever Ramadan comes, Ramadan mark fast. So what makes you to do this, Mark?
Well, at first, it started because of Give 30, which is a wonderful charity. And the idea of Give 30 is you take the money that you save from fasting and you give it to local food banks. And I was really touched by the charity's mission to connect people to the suffering of others and use the power of Ramadan to connect people to the suffering of others and to help people who are in need. But I have to say that one of the experiences that for me has been really valuable, and I think as you get older, you kind of appreciate this more generally. When I was a kid, being deprived of something would drive me bananas, and I would have no patience for it. But as you get older, you understand that being deprived of something is a really wonderful teacher of appreciation.
Right.
So I've used this analogy a few times where one of the things with COVID is we're separated from so many of the people that we love and so many of the things that we love to do. And you can look at that two ways. One, you can be so upset you don't get to do those things. Another way is to say, well, how rich is my life that I do have these things to look forward to? And I think one of the things that's pretty amazing about fasting is, you get so hungry, you're so excited about your meal, but you
Yeah.
know it's coming, and you're going to get that opportunity. And
Right.
then you think about, all the people that don't have that that have that hunger that's never satisfied, that, at the end of the day, when the sun sets, there is no meal for them. There is no opportunity for them to quench that.
Right.
And I think it really fills you with a deep sense of gratitude and appreciation. You really connect to the spirituality of it, and to the connection of how lucky we are and how important gratitude is in our life.
Right.
And that's not something I was expecting. I think I really did it to support the charity, but I wasn't expecting it to have such a spiritual impact on my life. And so it's something that I quite think I would do even if it wasn't for the charity at this point, because I think it's very rewarding.
Right. Well, you explained the true value of Ramadan, and we are very glad to hear that you actually understand all those things. And even though you started as a charity, and since how long you have been doing this?
Oh goodness, I think Azmat, it's been 7 years that I've done it now. So I'm kind of getting used to it. It's getting easier. I don't know if you find that, but I found the first couple of years really, really hard.
Right.
And I think a lot of it is psychological, so the hunger doesn't bother me as much anymore. And I've actually incorporated fasting into my day-to-day life. I don't now have breakfast. I usually don't eat until lunch, because I find that I like that feeling of really appreciating my food. And of course, when we think of breakfast, it is break fast, right? So it's an opportunity to kind of really lean into that first meal and be really appreciative about it. And so I try to take that lesson and apply it to all of my life.
Right. And you want to still continue this?
Do I want to continue fasting, you mean, with
Yeah.
Ramadan?
Yes.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And as I said, I mean, I'm such a believer in Give 30. I think it's such a wonderful idea. Because I think, I've had the conversation with so many folks who aren't Muslim about what Ramadan is and the message of Ramadan, and how beautiful it is and how much it has to teach us. And I think that's a really wonderful window on understanding Islam. And we're in a time when, unfortunately, people can live in silos. They can live in these worlds where they don't really get curious about other people, other religions, other cultures. And so, it's actually been a really wonderful opportunity to open up conversations about Islam and about the benefits of fasting, and so I think it's, in so many ways, it's been a wonderful, wonderful experience for me. So there's no question whether or not it's personally, whether or not it's professionally, or whether or not it's from a charitable perspective, it's 100% something I'll keep doing.
Right. Right. Great. Well, anyway, Mark, I want to ask you a question. So it's a very interesting question. So I want to give you three names, and you have to choose that who you want to choose as the Prime Minister of Canada. So it is, maybe it's difficult for you, but we choose some different names. So I give you three names: Stephen Harper, Jagmeet Singh, and Russell Peters.
I would choose Justin Trudeau. Is he not on that list?
No, unfortunately, this time.
You know what? Here's something, and I'm being a bit cheeky, but I think the reality is that in our system we look so much at who the individual leader is, and so much of it depends on the team. I mean, I think it's probably not a surprise that I'm not a big fan of Stephen Harper's. I think that it's a lot to do with his policies, but it also has a lot to do with the lack of empowerment of his caucus, and the fact that there really was, he was a one-man band, a one-man show. So a lot of it is with his policies, but I think that there was also that element of it. I just don't think that that's strong leadership. Jagmeet, I don't know particularly well. I haven't, I take it for what it's worth. Obviously, I have a partisan bent, but I haven't been that impressed with the substance of Jagmeet. I mean, he seems like a wonderful man individually, but I don't know that in his judgment or his actions, he's demonstrated leadership.
Right.
Russell Peters is funny. I mean, he's a great comedian.
Yeah.
And but I don't know anything about him as a leader. I really have no idea what he would do as a leader or what he would be. So I'm being boring here, but I don't. Hopefully I'm never confronted with that choice. Where I have to choose a prime minister from three names like that.
Well, don't
But I couldn't really make it in good conscience because I really don't know about two of them nearly enough about their leadership style. And one, I would make a determination. I wouldn't want to see the country go back there.
So basically, we lost your vote, eh?
Yeah, exactly. You're on your own on that one. Yeah, exactly. Fortunately, there's 37 or 38 million people who make that decision, not me. So
right. So anyway, which politician you like?
The person I'm closest with, obviously, would be the prime minister. I have such personal regard for the prime minister and the job that he does and the person that he is. I see him up close every day that I'm in Ottawa, and all that he carries and all that he does, and how he tries to do his best, and he is always looking for what the right answer is, and how he's willing to take criticism. And I've had such a wonderful experience working with him. I feel very lucky to be his whip. My closest friend politically is Omar Al Gabra. I just think there is not a better human being in this world than Omar. He is such a gentle-hearted person and has been such a dear friend to me through a lot of really difficult times. And he is somebody who, I would say really is a best friend. And in or out of politics, he'll be a big part of my life for all of my life.
Right. Mark, you started your career with the city politics, and then you step into the federal. What is the first? You're gonna tell me why you made that move from city to federal quickly, and then what's the difference in both politics?
Well, maybe I'll start with the difference. I mean, the difference is that, municipally, you really weren't too preoccupied with somebody's partisan stripes. So there was the opportunity to work with people who, yeah, I mean, you would know they were conservative or they were NDP, but you would work with them and everybody would kind of set that aside. And you could have major policy differences, but you could go out and you could have a beer or have a sandwich with them. And I think that I like that a lot. The other thing municipally that was great is that, while it's a small world, you can change a lot. You have the power to be able to make a big difference in a smaller way.
Right.
Federally, the difference is you can make big change, but it often is very slow.
Right.
And sometimes you feel like you're trying to move a ship by throwing a stone against the hull. It's a very, very big thing, and it should be difficult to make change federally because it impacts so many people. But the pace of change is difficult. And I think that partisan rancor is disappointing. I look at the relationship that I have with Rod Phillips as an example, provincially, such a wonderful man.
Right.
He and I, he's a provincial MPP who's with the Conservative Party, and we'd have huge differences in policy, but I have so much respect for him as an individual and as a representative. And there's no reason just because we don't agree on policy that we can't not only be civil but have mutual respect for each other. That we're both trying to do the best thing. We're both trying to build a better community.
Right.
And I think we need more of that in our politics. I think, a lot of the acrimony and a lot of the nastiness that we see, it turns people off. And the only thing it does is it makes people not listen at all to anybody, which is a problem.
So tell me which one is difficult, like city politics was difficult or federal politics?
Oh, I mean, I went federal because my heart's always been there. I think I remember going in grade 8 on a grade 8 trip to Parliament and just being in awe of the buildings and what they represented and the ability that anybody could step into them and make change. But it's harder. It's unquestionably harder because the pressures are that much greater. That you're one misspoken sentence away from destruction. That you're gonna, if you say something a little bit wrong, it'll be a national headline. You have to spend way more time away from your family, and you're representing far more people. representing now in Ajax over 120,000 people, or close to 130,000 people. That's a lot of responsibility, particularly because you can never do it exactly the way you want to do it. I'm only one person. I can't be there for that 130,000 people the way that I would like to be there. You try to do your best, but and I have a wonderful team, and we put our whole heart into it. But 130,000 people is a lot of people. And you can't always do what you want to do. It's always a little bit bigger than you are.
All right. Do you feel yourself a lucky person, and why?
I am such a grateful person. I am so lucky. I'm so blessed, and I think that this is a spiritual practice, really, Azmat. I think that it's so important to give praise and thanks for the wonderful things in our life.
Right.
I could sit here and tell you a story about all the hard things that are going on in my life, and you could as well. But that's not the purpose of life. It's about counting our blessings, and I have such wonderful people that I work with. I get to work on things that I really care about. I have just wonderful people in my family and beautiful friends, and I have activities I really enjoy. I have my health. So, there's lots of things that I could complain about or I don't like or are hard. But I go back to my mom, who's my example. She's gone through so much. She's dealt with so much. But she's always so optimistic. She's always so grateful. And so I feel I'm a deeply lucky person, but I think that practice of gratitude is one that I recommend for everybody, no matter where they are, because it's the origin of all good things. When you're grateful, then you see opportunities. When you're grateful, you see you see the positive, and you attract people to want to be in your presence.
Right. Any regrets in life, Mark?
I have lots of laments, Azmat. I think, I'm 45 years old, and there's lots of things that I look at and go, wow, I would have done that differently. But I wouldn't call it a regret, because at the time, I was just doing what I thought was right and acting on the knowledge that I had. So I've made lots of mistakes, but I forgive myself for them, because I was learning, and life is a process of experimentation and trying to figure out what's the right way to go and what's the best thing to do.
Right.
So I don't call them regrets. I don't, because regrets has a connotation of living in the past or kind of holding on to something that you should have done differently. I characterize them as laments, being like, well, would have done that differently. That was a mistake. But still being forgiving of myself, because I was not knowledgeable. And the things I don't forgive myself for are the mistakes that I repeat, not
Right.
the mistakes that I made.
Yeah. Well, do you want to share any interesting or funny argument in the House of Commons?
A funny argument. Well, we have a lot of debates. We have a lot of arguments. I mean, a lot of what I deal with these days are HR issues. So there's a lot of stories that are, lighthearted, but they're HR, so they're kind of a bit behind a fence.
Yeah.
A lot of the debates that occur in Parliament. I mean, I think my big problem, it's not funny, but my big problem is when an argument is disingenuous. We have lots of great debates in Parliament,
Right.
lots of debates that are really meaningful and where I can see the other side and I can respect it. But when it's disingenuous, when somebody is saying something that I don't think is true, let me correct that. Not that I don't think is true, that I know they don't think is true,
Yeah.
but they think it's going to win them political points. That kind of stuff is super fatiguing. But in terms of like funny debates, I don't know. I mean, I'm not giving you a lot of comedic material here to work with, but but I can't think of anything right off the top.
Right. Well, Mark, you are currently serving as a chief government whip. Just could you please shed light on this role and the responsibility that people want to know?
Sure. Well, I see the whip as being responsible for bringing people together, for finding, you kind of look at it and say, we have a piece of legislation that the government wants to pass, and we have to find a way to bring the caucus together in a minority parliament, to bring the other parties together and find middle ground. And so I try to do that. The other thing is, because I've been around a long time, this is now my fifth term,
Right.
I try to act as a mentor and a coach.
Right.
I'm responsible for the human resources, but I also try to build members up. Try to have conversations with them about what their issues are. Make sure that they have a home for it, that they can feel they're making a difference.
Right.
And then I'm responsible for a lot of the technical stuff. Making sure we win a vote is the biggest thing. If we lose a vote, then I've really failed, because it's the whip's job to make sure you win a vote. But it's also up to me to be make sure everybody's in the house, that they come to Ottawa, to choose what committees that they're going to be sitting on. So there's a lot of different facets of it. I feel deeply lucky. It's a job I really appreciate and enjoy, and I think I'm pretty good at.
So did you get any hard time from somebody? Hey, I'm not coming in. You said, no, you have to come in.
Every day, every day. Because look, the thing is, Azmat, people have got to balance. And I'm respectful of this. Like, everybody has a constituency back home with constituents they represent and important events. They got family, they've got personal obligations, and I got to be the bad guy that says, I'm sorry, you got to come in. It's just the way it is. Sometimes people will. There's only so many times your dog can get sick, right? It's there are certain people who try to use the same tricks, but for the most part, people are super understanding, and it's and they understand the role that I play. But it's really what I try to do, and I explain to them the reason I will let people go back or not be in Ottawa are because of their personal circumstance. There's something very serious in their personal life or their health.
Right.
And when it comes to their riding, it's got to be a massive event, because at the end of the day, our responsibility is to Parliament. We're elected to be parliamentarians and to do the work of Parliament.
Right.
And that's what I try to focus on.
Right. Do you believe in love and romance?
Oh, too much.
Oh, that's great.
Because I think, look, love is such an important thing in the world, and I think it's important to reflect on what love is, or I can at least say what love is to me. Love is having somebody in your life where there's not only total acceptance, but a celebration of who you are.
Right.
We all have parts of ourselves that we wish were a little better, or we wish we were stronger. But when somebody sees our total package and sees even our faults as things to celebrate, that's love in its greatest form. And I think having love in your life, being totally accepted, having somebody build you up, and is just the greatest thing in the universe. So I believe in love with all of my heart. I think it's the point. I think there are two forces in the universe, Azmat. There's entropy, which is things falling apart and breaking down,
Mm-hmm.
and the other force is love. Right? It's why do we wake up in the morning? Why are you doing this podcast right now? You're doing it because you love your community. You want to share something special. It's everything we do is informed by love. Every action that's taken is informed by love.
Right.
And in terms of romantic heart, romance, absolutely. Romance is a deeply essential part of our life as well. And having that spark and having that connection is something that I'm deeply appreciative of.
No, that's really great. And so how long you guys living together, you and Stephanie?
Steph and I have been together over 5 years, and she is just a beautiful, wonderful person who I feel deeply grateful to have in my life. She's a private person, and I appreciate that. I think it's an unusual thing. I live a very public life,
Right.
And not everybody wants to do that. But she's a tremendous source of joy and positivity in my life.
So what do you actually want to see in your ideal partner?
Well, Stephanie, I want to see just what I said, somebody who celebrates who I am, and I celebrate who they are. That's there when things are tough, and there to cry with you when things are really hard, and there to celebrate with you when things are really good. I think that it's somebody who looks in the same direction you do, who sees the world in the same way that you do, who shares your values, who understands why you make choices, because they use a similar moral compass and logic framework to make those choices. And I think those are the things that are really important. And then fun. like to have a good time, to be able to go out. I love to dance. I love to sing. I love to be out with friends. That's somebody who I can have a lot of fun with is really important to me too.
So let me ask you in this way: how do you define yourself as an ideal partner?
Well, I think I'm pretty great. Hopefully we all do. I think that I'm a lot of fun. I'm very reliable. I'm the person who everybody turns to when there's a problem to try to fix it. I really pour my heart into everybody that I care about. I work really hard to try to do my best, to try to do the best thing that I can in any given circumstance, and to make sure that I lift burdens off people's shoulders rather than put them there, and to celebrate in totality the people that are in my life as in every facet of them, to accept them exactly as who they are and to celebrate exactly who they are.
Right. Mark, I just want to ask you your quick comment on the current issue about the racism. I would say the racial violence, it's going on. First it happened in the States and now it's in Canada. So what's your comment on that?
Well, I think this is going to sound like a strange comment, but I think if we're truly going to defeat racism and end it, then we have to ask the question of where is it coming from? And there's a lot of people right now who are deeply scared. The world is changing at such a pace where the lives that they had known, where it used to be you would grow up and you get a job and to be there your whole life, and now there's a process of constant competition, constant evolution, the technology, the pace that it's going at, the pace at which we have to learn, the fact that we're competing against the whole planet, not just our neighborhood. So people are scared, and unfortunately there are people who play on that fear. Right. And they take misconceptions and they take misinformation, and they really I think and this is something that I think is really sad. They take that and they play on people's fears and they make them believe things that are not true. Right. It's very hard to be racist when you actually know people. When they're caricatures, and when you listen to those things, then it's very easy. So if we're truly going to defeat it, I think we have to be careful not to just dismiss people. I think we have to welcome questions. We have to reach out to people. We have to attack those who are in leadership positions who do this. We have to challenge any sort of racist comment that we have. And then we have to interrogate, even within ourselves, our own biases that we may have. It's because racism isn't just as obvious as saying something or feeling something racist. It can also be ingrained biases that we have. Right. If you're a manager and you're responsible for hiring, when you take a look at somebody who has a different name than you, right? If you take a look at somebody who maybe has a different religion than you, right, are you subconsciously evaluating that resume differently? When you see somebody on the street and they are from a different background or a different way of living even than you, right, well, how are you perceiving them before you have any facts? Right. And I think that we all have ingrained biases. Right. And until we all recognize that we have work to do individually on ourselves, then we're not also going to get at it. So it's a big problem. I think we're making progress, but I don't think as a nation we can be too proud of that progress to say that the work is done. There's still a lot of work to do.
Right. So do you think that racism does exist in Canada?
Yes. Yeah, it does. I mean, look, the reality, Azmat, I mean, look, it's a very different thing to be. Sorry, go ahead.
Is it worst? If we compare two countries, south of the border and here, is it worse than US or Canada?
Well, I would say that it's unacceptable wherever it is. And that I think sometimes, look, Canada is a beautiful country. And I think the vast majority of Canadians are open-hearted and pluralistic and welcoming. And I'm so deeply proud of our country. But there is racism that still exists here. I, as a white member of parliament, I don't face the same issues that a female member of parliament does. I don't face the same issues that somebody from a different ethnic background or a different religion faces. So I recognize that my experience is different, and I want to change that because it's we have to be in a world, the type of world that Martin Luther King talked about, where you're judged by the content of your character, not the color of your skin.
Right.
And that is, we need all people to speak up for that. And I think being a little too proud of the fact that we are better than most,
Right.
it kind of absolves us from acting or making things better. And I don't think that's acceptable.
Well, if we talk about the Constitution of Canada, or we even talk about the Ontario Human Rights Code, do you think that this is the time, because Canada is importing a lot of immigrants? So do you think is it a time to add something during the immigration process as an oath or another document, whoever is coming in, so they can take an oath for this, and then we can, reduce this issue?
Yes, because I think it's an interesting question. It's something I'd like to look at. I mean, I think the at the end of the day, it is such a profound and deep Canadian value to celebrate inclusion and diversity, and to celebrate one another's differences. That that people really need to understand that when we're talking about Canada, that is what we're talking about. That is a core Canadian value, and that if you don't believe that you're out of alignment with what the country believes. And I think it is important for a country to have core values. And I think the Charter of Rights and Freedoms is just a totally foundational document on that basis. It is the ground upon which we stand, and every person who's here needs to respect that. And I welcome people, to say things that are completely abhorrent to me. I believe in free speech, but they have to understand that is they are not going to be protected from hate. They're not going to be empowered to spread misinformation or lies about other people. That there are going to be boundaries to that, and that when we hear racism, they may be entitled to say things that I find abhorrent, but I will challenge them, and we will as a country. And so I think it's really important that we find different ways to enshrine those values.
Right. Well, very well said, Mark. I hope this issue will resolve. And as you said, Canada is a beautiful country and a very, very beautiful people. And I feel that people do understand this and respect. And yes, racism does exist, but still, it's not worse than if we compare to the other areas. And so, what are your future plans? Where do you see yourself next 10 years?
Well, one thing I've learned about my life is that life has a better script for me than I do. So, I'm really enjoying and loving where I am. I don't foresee leaving politics anytime soon. I'd like to continue. It's not really my choice in many ways. It's up to the voters of Ajax, but I really love representing them. Yeah, I'm getting good response, and I feel good about it. And if they will keep having me, I think it's going to be something I'm going to do for some period of time. I love being whip. I love trying to make a difference in any way that I'm asked, and whatever role I'm asked to play, I'll do. But Azmat, I'm at a point in my life where I'm really, I really feel very lucky. I'm doing a job I love with people that I love, and so I'm good.
Right.
If hopefully the universe has something else in store that's, but if it's as good as this, I'm okay.
Yeah, great to hear that. Well, in the end, any advice to the new politicians, the youngsters, who wants to come with politics? What is your advice to them?
It's not about you. Politics is not about you. And I think a lot of people make that mistake. This isn't an opportunity for to grow your ego. This is an opportunity to make a difference. If you're a community activist, if you're somebody who's in the trenches fighting to make your community or your province or your country a better place, then you're the type of person who should be in politics. If you want to do this because you somehow think it's going to make you personally great, it isn't. I'm very aware, and particularly after I lost in 2011, people give you attention because of the title you have, and you're very privileged to be able to hold it.
Right.
But the day that title's gone, it's meaningless. So it's the position that's important. It's not you. And it's so important. If you don't know why you're running, if you can't say the things you want to change and can't demonstrate that you've made it about your community in your life, then you shouldn't be running.
Yeah. Well, Mark, you lost in 2011, but you won 3 times as well. So do remember.
4.
Yeah, four times. Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah.
there you go. I got to get.
And then before that, you have been serving as a city councillor. So you have been serving this community and the country of Canada, for a long time. You are a devoted person. So we appreciate your contribution. And lastly, any message to the Canadians or the Pakistani community?
Well, let me just say to Canadians, whether or not you be of Pakistani origin or Canadians more broadly, thank you. You can see the efforts on social distancing, on being away from people you love. I know how hard it is. I know how much sacrifice you're making, but look at the difference it's making. The numbers in Canada. We're having about 300 across the nation COVID cases on a daily basis now. We're really doing a remarkable job of keeping people safe, on bringing those numbers down, on saving lives. I know how hard it is, but it is so important. And I just really want to say a huge thank you to everybody who's doing that. Obviously, we're all thanking the frontline workers and everything they're doing, and that's deep in my heart. But I think, for the sacrifices everybody's individually making, I just really want to express my appreciation.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Mark. And you know what? I would like to thank you and your staff, like office staff. They were really helpful, very cooperative, and make this happen. So please thank them on my behalf, and thank you for coming our show, and all the best in future. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Azmat. Always wonderful to see you. I really appreciate your friendship, and always happy to do this.
Yeah, thank you so much. So viewers, you heard Mark's comment about the COVID and for the community. So please do follow those instructions. Those are very, very good suggestions and a very strong message. And I hope you like our program. Please subscribe our channel, and don't forget to give us a feedback. And we will come back to you in our next program with a new guest. So thank you so much, and have a great day. Allah Hafiz.